Hi, welcome to another moment with Pancake Marathon, where I know a foundation's everything, yet it's about the ingredient that you're using, the pancake, right? We've all done a 180, and at moments it is necessary to do a 360, but not before we do a 180. And then it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. How do you rehydrate and keep going from that moment? So essentially, I think it's fitting. Now, I've been kind of sitting on this topic, which essentially is deceiving myself, right? Deceiving yourself, essentially, upon itself. You know, I feel that, it's right there. You got to be honest, rigorously honest at all moments. Yes, we can say that admitting is, kind of what helps us understand or come to terms in and of itself, live life on life's terms, that we have to do step one, right? Or that leads us into step one. Yet, if we're deceiving ourselves at any moment, right? Another way of thinking about it or saying it is, how are you getting out of your stinking thinking? How are you turning your character defects into something as such as your shortcomings? Because essentially, we have this ability to catastrophize, right? Go to such an extreme that we're overthinking, trying to control every single thing. And we're not trying, we're doing it. Like to me, that goes back to the moment where before my recovery journey upon itself, that try was, oh my good, are you serious? You're gonna try? You're just not gonna do it? That's kind of crazy. I don't know. You can keep going because you're a keeper. Keep on going that way. Absolutely. And you know what? There's some crayons down there because that's what God made for you. So essentially, the topic today is deceiving yourself. Just saying. You know, there's this. So I'm at a halfway house, and I love this halfway house. There's points to where tradition four, let it run unless it's focusing on the negative or devaluing things. Essentially, as what tradition four is primarily about. And I totally had this wisdom because of my higher power within that, you know. So, and at the same time, to simply say tradition five. That's my message. Each group has its own message, right? And so it takes, two to have a meeting. Absolutely. And so you and your higher power, that's a meeting. That's where essentially a meeting is where you pray and meditate all at the same time, share upon itself. Because to me, sharing is healing. And a program, we could say our fancy words on a paper, a theory, essentially, or a dissertation, or what it may be. Semantics at that point, right? Yet, in and of itself, simply to say a program is really you, right? Like the same thing as saying a destination. You're really the destination ultimately. And that's what you're working towards. What is tradition one really about? Unity. And as I always think and just understand of all of itself, that you have to have that unity. You're unifying yourself. This is a spiritual program, not religious. And so that means, it's a spiritual nature upon itself. You're unifying yourself. Essentially, you're actually going back home. To the real world, or to that plane of existence, to where you're going to wake up and be like, oh yeah, this is me. Oh, that was a dream, essentially, right? Yet, since you're here living life on life's terms, which essentially is just a fancy way, or whatever it may be posed or phrased, as live in the now moment. The now moment. There's only the now moment. How is there only the now moment? There's just many now moments, right? It's essentially a fractal upon itself. And you can go ahead and say time, but that's just another way of saying, in a simpler way, of 50 words that get summed up in one word of time, right? Or that of what is change from this moment to this moment, or the change factor in of itself, to simply say. Yet overall, the topic is what? Deceiving yourself, right? Or deceiving myself, or whatever it may be. I just know that essentially it's deceiving. To sum it up very, very simply. Because there's points where I'm like deceiving myself. I get what I talk about, right? You get what you focus on and all that kind of stuff. But it's also your intent, your feeling behind it. Yes, I know there's a slogan out there that says feelings aren't facts. Yet there are points in recovery and the terminology and what it may be is what time, essentially, what change, what moment, what phase, what season are we in our recovery? Because in the beginning, yes, we did not know how to go about life in a healthy way, which is just coping, simply to say. Now, if it's unhealthy, then I'm not sure the word at this moment. I know for it will come because I'm praying what step 11 is, and I'm consciously, improving step 11 of contact of that higher power that I have, that peace of mind essentially is your HP, your higher power. And so, to not control it, just let it happen, Don't have these expectations on other than yourself. And essentially, those are a point to where those aren't necessarily the most beneficial. Now, we could say good or bad, but that's not really a real thing. It's always how you look at it, essentially. And so, do you have a cup? Can you fill it? Yes. Always and forever. Absolutely. Yet, when it really comes down to it, are you deceiving yourself? How are you deceiving yourself? And going back to what I was just referring to, that it's not good or bad, it's how you look at it. Mental or physical can be a prison, yet your attitude sets you free. It always and forever will be. How do you approach it? If you're going to go into it with cultivating an attitude of gratitude, that I'm going to learn something from this. And because I'm going to learn something from this, it absolutely is going to go amazingness. And I'm going to get to right where I'm going to need to, and it's going to happen right when it needs to happen. Because it only happens right when it's happening, and that's why it needs and is happening, basically. And so, there's a point where, deceiving yourself. Like for my instance of what kind of comes to mind upon itself is, okay, so at this halfway house, right? It's always about reading the room and all that kind of stuff. Yet, because I am who I am, I was like, dang, this place needs some help, right? And so what did I do, essentially? I swept the whole entire campus, essentially. I quite literally swept all of it. There was so much to, like just stuff on the ground, essentially, right? And so I swept it. Now, first and foremost, they were like, what's going on? That is really weird, considering no one else does that. No one else is willing and all that and whatnot, right? So they're like, so what's going on? How are you doing today? Do you need a drug test? Essentially, right? And so it comes down to, well, you read the room, right? So I'm not going to say that I wasn't, upset, perturbed, had my reservations, anger, essentially. And was I obsessing over it, overthinking it? It was stealing my peace of mind, essentially. Obsessing and, resentments, right? And then I had this reservation, of, hesitation upon itself of doing why do they have that, questioning things, essentially, reservations, because that's what you do when you go to a restaurant, right? You already make a reservation, you know what's going to happen, in a sense, it's an expectation upon itself. And so, I did that and I kept going. And, I went into it with, I don't know why I'm doing this. Yes, I know that it's going to be nice and all that kind of stuff. Yet, I did not actually come to terms with, we could say, an overall game plan of this is what I'm going to accomplish. Other than, I'm going to learn something from this. What it may be, I don't know. When will it come? I don't know. Yet, essentially, me showing up, me having that honesty, right? To not deceive myself that I'm doing this because I want to. Yes, there's a point where I only do things essentially because I want to, yet because it's in a, a level of coping, right? Healthy actions. To where essentially promise 6. Nope. Hang on, I think that's promise 7, actually. I don't know why I get those moments and things or all that intertwined, and then maybe it's because I'm dyslexic or whatever it may be. And when I say I am, there's points to where it's a human experience, and I'm not going to deceive myself and going to everyone else's level or going down to their level or going up to the level, because yes, losing yourself is absolutely the only way you can actually find yourself. This is true. Yet at what point have I lost myself to such a degree? It's always about that foundation. It's about rehydrating. It's about the marathon. And it's about how I keep on, adding to what ingredient. Maybe take a little bit off the top before I add it, right? But if it's making my life unmanageable, then I can't keep deceiving myself that I have to go back to my foundation. I got to go back to everything that got me to be part of my recovery, simply to say. We could say sober or clean. There's a podcast that I was listening to at one moment, and it was like, I don't like to say clean. I was never dirty, right? Like the religious part of being, oh, you're unclean, we need to clean you, right? Or, simply to say, because it doesn't matter. That's why I really like how there's so many, like at the moment when I looked at it, there was over 220 12-step recovery programs, essentially. And I'm sure there's more out there, from the subcategories or the ones that are trying to find their way as Tradition 5 and that all that kind of stuff. And yet, when you really get down to the nitty gritty and keeping it simple, at this moment, there's over 220 12-step recovery programs. There's more out there that aren't, essentially being counted as the non-12-step recovery programs, like Smart Recovery and all those kind of things, Yet, essentially, there is this moment where you have to just admit and come to terms with what's going on around you. Read the room. Live life on life's terms. Stay in the now moment, right? All those are the same thing, essentially. We could say technically, but whatever. It's, it's just kind of silly. It's all the same thing. How are you deceiving yourself today? There's another way of saying deceiving, which is, cognitive dissonance upon itself, right? Your focus moment. What are you focusing on? And essentially, cognitive dissonance is the same thing as ignorance. It sounds the same, actually. Probably is the same when you really, connect the dots in the way that I just have and all that jazz and all that whatnots. Yet, essentially, deceiving yourself is the same thing as ignorance upon itself as that of cognitive dissonance. What are you focusing on? Because ignorance has nothing to do with your intelligence level. It has nothing to do with that. Because there's emotional intelligence and all that kind of stuff. And really, if you're not emotionally intelligent, are you really intelligent? Because you're not, living life on life's terms. You're not being a team. You're not finding unity. You're doing it all on your own. You're basically calling everybody stupid, right? On what you would say their BS is, being stupid. And then you kicking your BS of being smart so that you can be being spectacular and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of BS going on. I'm just saying, yet the point is that you can't do this by yourself. Yeah, you can. You can do everything. Yet, can you really live life on life's terms when, scientifically, that we have mirror neurons and all that kind of stuff. But I want to say scientifically because it relates into that one word, essentially. I could say, oh, there's research to say this kind of stuff, or that sum up word to that 50, right? Essentially. And at the same time, it's about getting others. Getting others to already find a way to themselves to where if they already relate to what it may be of science or whatever it may be, right? Going to their level. Don't go down, don't go up to their level. Don't become them, essentially. Yet go to their level and give them some hope and a chance that there's more out there. Now, if they want it, okay, that's great. If they don't, well, you planted the seed. And then that's, you tried, right? Step 12. Yet essentially, when it comes down to it, because ignorance essentially is you're ignoring something. And so we go from the noun to the verb, essentially, ignorance. And you're not focusing on this thing because you're focusing on this other thing. Okay, that's ignorance. You're ignoring something to focus on this other thing, And so essentially, that's why I know there's not multitasking in the law of karma, one of them. Essentially you can't focus on more than one thing. It's impossible. Now, can you do multiple things in that one thing? Okay, that's not multitasking. You're doing one thing. It just has multiple elements essentially to it. Or you're at different phases, different seasons within that thing. So maybe you can't ever really multitask and do more than one element in one thing. You're just doing one thing, then go to the next, and then go to the next, essentially. Yet, deceiving yourself, ignorance, right? Focusing on one thing to ignore something else, essentially. Ignorance, right? Cognitive dissonance upon itself. And it's okay. There's self-care, right? Because sometimes you just gotta give it to God. Right? Sometimes you're just there to show up to witness what's going on, essentially. So you can be the one that holds a space as a storyteller, essentially. And I'm not talking about the Southern storytelling where you're embellishing and making it up all yourself to keep everybody very interested. It's like, what is going on? Right? So essentially, one of the reasons why I picked deceiving, there's a point where it's like, in the big book, of AA, essentially there's the point where, Bill Wilson, as stated, well, I can have milk and then drink, right? Deceiving yourself. There are points to where what happened when you get to see the whole tape being played, essentially, that it made their life unmanageable once again. And it always has. That's why it's a progressive disease, you're at disease. You're not at ease, right? Or it would be called progressive ease, And that's essentially what recovery is. You have progressive ease upon this progressive dis-ease, essentially. And so, that was just kind of a spiritual awakening that I got from, taking a moment. That's why I like doing these podcasts in a sense, or one of the reasons, essentially, of saying, because I get to take those moments and all that kind of stuff to collect my thoughts and all that kind of stuff. What really is, how do I carry the message in the most appropriate way, essentially, and to communicate, to pray, and to meditate, and all that kind of stuff. And yet, of itself, I just got some intuitional, guidance, essentially, from my HP, essentially. And I was going to go into what I was just about to talk about, yet something gave me the push because I prayed. Pray until something happens, right? Push. to, mind my P's and Q's, pause and quiet. Now, I don't really need to halt because I'm not angry, lonely, hungry, or tired, all those kind of things, right? Yet, it comes down to the simple point of, am I going to keep it simple? Or am I going to go into something else? Or essentially, that I'm not at that point, right? And now I feel, or I've been guided, or all those kind of things to go into it. Yet at the same time, I'm not going to, because I've already went to this point, and slash still getting that guidance to where, yeah, you're like, oh, you're ready, but then it's like, don't do it, because it's about the energy level. It's about that vibration, and I am keeping it simple. Yes, there are points to where I do want to discuss that, but I don't need to discuss that right here in this now moment, right? I'm not going to deceive myself, essentially. So all of those things that I just talked about, essentially, like in this right here, if you could see what I mean by this part right here, which is from before I paused it, which essentially to you listening to this essentially is when I started talking about this spiritual awakening of how I, the guidance and take a pause and all those kind of things, essentially, as to kind of, bring it back to deceiving myself. Do I have something more to offer than anyone else? And a simple answer, no. But when you look in the mirror, it says on, essentially. And so, or when you reverse the letters and all that kind of stuff, unless you put into bubble letters, essentially, that mirror is going to reflect on. And so on I go, to not deceive myself, to not say, oh, I have something more to offer and da 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 da. And it's not that I don't have something to offer. This is a spiritual program. Everything has value. Yet, am I taking away from the message of this, right? Of deceiving yourself. I'm not going to deceive myself that I can get everything in one moment. Yeah, I do feel the way that I feel, and it is valid. And at the same time, I don't need to go into it at this moment. I'm still praying through this obsession, this overthinking, something it's not really stealing my peace of mind. It's just a thought that's reoccurring. And yes, it can go into a reservation or that of essentially then a resentment and, essentially, we can re-say that something that I'm going through my mind and through expectations of what it may be, and then going ahead and having this level of anger, which is sadness, which is fear, which is just that of a level of love, essentially, because everything's love. Yet, do you love to hate it? Which is still love, but you're hating it, and you're focusing on it, So don't deceive yourself, right? Don't think that you can just go out and, I can do one. Okay, well, you can. You have this ability. May you not make your life absolutely unmanageable? There it is, right there. How do you make your life not unmanageable? So yeah, and everything without moderation is an addiction. It really, really is. Then is it really joyous upon itself? Or are you just fooling yourself to whatever it may be? Yet, this is what I felt like talking about today, because I did not want to isolate. I know these podcasts are absolutely something, and I've been wanting to, have a podcast or a topic about deceiving, be it yourself, anyone else. But if you're willing to deceive yourself, you are absolutely willing to deceive everyone else. Maybe you haven't come to terms with how you're deceiving yourself. So is that really deceiving? Is that really a mistake? Because the first time you do it, that was an accident. But if you make progress and then something still happens, well, then that's still an accident. But if you keep doing the same exact thing, that's a mistake. And shame on you. Well, the first thing, right? And then shame on me for letting it happen again. And oh my goodness. Right? I'm just saying, yeah. Hopefully you find something in this. Because I know I have. I found myself. Okay, so, well, this is the conclusion of this podcast, this episode, or whatever it may be. Goodness and gracious. Who are the, I don't even know. Ha! Yeah, don't be so serious in your recovery, because it's a serious progressive disease that's going to put you at disease. Yet, it's a recovery. It's a progressive ease upon itself. So when you go to deceive yourself, just know, is it just for that moment and you're not really deceiving yourself because you're being taught something? Yet, if you're being preached at over and over again, you're making a mistake. And there's points to where even that moment of more research, step zero, getting back up, it's always how you start, not how you finish. Or it's always how you finish and not how you start, essentially. Because in the end is the beginning. And in the beginning, there is only the end. Yet, if you're already here, then you are forever, essentially. Yet, so, do something that, you can look back at and smile about. And just like, oh, whoa, right? Yet, that's everything. It's always how you look at it. There's a glass. Can you feel it? Yes. Simple answer, right? Gotta keep it simple. Or, gotta kiss. Keep it simply simple. Absolutely. So, yeah, I hope I lined something up for somebody today. I know I did. And I'm part of that someone, because I'm someone. Absolutely. I know everyone in recovery that has actually experienced to be qualified to be a peer support and, qualified to be a member, because they have the desire of any, recovery, 12, anything like that, right? Essentially. And those that have money problems, you have nothing. You have nothing. That is not even real. Stop torturing yourself. Get out of your head and go and help somebody else out. Because are you serious? You can't do this by yourself. Stop deceiving yourself. Absolutely. Yeah. I hope I lined something up for somebody. And at the absoluteness of itself, I hope you find something that requires you to keep coming back. Because that's really what it's all about. You finding something that requires you to keep coming back to unity. Absolutely. To what? Yourself? Yes. That's ultimately what I'm saying here. This is great, cool. Keep coming back to these words of any of the stuff that I do. Yet, ultimately, it's your recovery. You're the one that has to pay the price for whatever it may be, good or bad. It's how you look at it. Yet, I'm not going to have to pay for you using. Absolutely not. That's not me. Unless I take that on and then it's me. But it's not you at that point. Yet I know since it's you, it's not me at that point and at that level, right? Even though we're all connected. Yet I hopefully I lined something up for somebody today. And I absolutely know, I hope without a doubt, and everything, that you find something that requires you to keep coming back, because that's really what it's about. Thank you. You have a moments of, well, you got this. Just keep going. Don't beat yourself up for too long, because it's not worth it. I know when I did that, beating myself up, it took forever, as it seemed, to get to this point of loving myself again, forgiving myself, and, it is what it is. I'm living life on life's terms, not deceiving myself, because I'm being honest, praying, meditating, all that good stuff. Well, have a beautiful one. And always remember, please, that your shoes do fit just right. That you do deserve to take up space. And, God doesn't make junk. Exactly. Thank you. So essentially, this is the ending song, of that really sums up why I do this. So here it is.
I'll follow you wherever you go. Stay close to you, 'cause darling, you're my home.